All right, guys, welcome to the What's Your Block podcast. My name is Carrie. I'm your host. I am so excited to have the guest that I have on today. Her name is Cathy Gabrielsen. She's one of my mom's best friends. So I've known her for, over like a decade, I think. Probably over a decade.
A couple?
Yeah, a couple. Forgot how old I am. I'm going to actually start off by reading Cathy's foreword of her book. Oftentimes I do bios for people, but I thought as I was reading Cathy's book, I was like, you know what? I think this is the best way to describe the essence of who she is in the book that she wrote. So this foreword is by Deborah King, who is a spiritual teacher, an energy healer, and a best-selling author, which is incredible, about Cathy's book. Cathy Gabrielsen died twice, as a teenager in a horrific automobile accident in 1988, and again as a mother of two small children in 2010, only to be returned to a life after an encounter with a miraculous healing light on the other side. Crossing the boundary into death, she experienced a spiritual transformation, the release of pain and fear, while discovering her own hidden paranormal gifts. And now she shares her full story in Dying to Live, Surviving Near Death. Cathy's heart-stopping journey from surviving a near-fatal car crash to battling a breast cancer diagnosis and sepsis to battles with depression, anxiety, and PTSD explodes with untamed honesty. How does facing death change us? What is it like to die? The answers in these pages will startle you, illuminate you, inspire you. You may read 1,000 books on facing death, but Cathy will show you how to face life. Never, and I will stand by this, never has there been a truer, more transcendent depiction of near death than the life of Cathy Gabrielsen. Welcome to the show.
Wow, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. First of all, Deborah King is such a big deal. I didn't even know that she was like writing the foreword. I thought that you were doing her courses and stuff like that, and I thought that like you didn't know
mentor.
her personally.
Yeah.
How did you get connected with her?
I was in the lowest low of my existence. I was kind of really, really, really knew I needed to heal. And back when I had breast cancer, I met some chakra healer. You know, because when you're a young mom and you have breast cancer, you want to do everything. So that's when I first got into alternative medicine in 2003. And I found a chakra healer, and I knew something spectacular. You've experienced energy healing.
Yeah.
Something spectacular happened that day, and I wanted to recreate it. I just felt it. So I was searching for, how to heal your chakras, and I came across Deborah King. And I couldn't see her in person. I couldn't find a chakra healer anywhere near me. Mm-hmm. And that was all for the purpose of me learning how to do it. So I said, if I can't find somebody to heal me, I'm going to have to heal myself. And so I just went on just studying all about all the things I didn't know. And I met Deborah King, and she basically there was a woman named Louise Hay, and that was Deborah's mentor.
Yeah.
And and Deborah was mine. Yeah. So
that is nuts. Louise Hay is like the Oprah of the spiritual healing world.
I know.
So I want to kind of I'm a chronological order kind of person. Like I love stories, in chronological order. So I want to start from the start. Can you tell me a little bit about Tim?
Yes. Tim was a complete free spirit, free spirit.
Really?
Loved the ocean, loved to surf, loved reggae and the Grateful Dead, and loved the old, Steve Miller songs. He wore ripped jeans all the time, back, and white and T-shirts, and he was just so cool and easygoing and chill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So much fun to be around. Mm-hmm. So much. And he really loved me, Yeah. Yeah, it was my first real relationship, and he was really special. Blue eyes, nice wavy hair.
Yeah.
Kind of like you right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, the Bronco thing is kind of crazy, because when I read that in your book that he had his 1987 Bronco, and my Bronco, as you guys know, is literally my whole personality.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's such a wild connection.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I never thought of that.
Yeah. Did you After the accident, were you ever like triggered by Broncos?
No,
Yeah,
other
gotcha.
things.
Other
like
things.
leaves fall, like, like different
The season.
scents,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff, but not Ford Broncos.
Is fall because if the accident happened in
it
fall?
happened on November 11th. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
11/11. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about November 11th? Like what happened that night?
Yeah, I will. So that night on November 11th, I remember it was like Z Cavaricci jeans were in, and everybody was like pegging their pants. And
What is pegging your pants?
Peg is like when you fold it over, and you roll it up. And
Oh my gosh!
it was like the peg pant time. It was you had to have
I feel
peg
like
pants.
that's back in, honestly.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I had the cool in pants and the boots and the bomber jacket.
Oh yeah.
And actually Tim had got me. One of the things that was so special about Tim was, when I was growing up, it's not like we had excess of anything. So, we didn't have a lot. I couldn't really afford a lot of the really fun, cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was always surprising me with really sweet, special things. Not all the time, but, he did. And he gave me this beautiful leather bomber jacket. And I remember I was wearing it the night of the accident, and my Z calves and my nice shirt, and styling, going to a party, house party, because that's what you did.
Yep.
Back in the day, your parents went out to dinner and everybody had a party, and you went over there for a few hours.
And he went to Malvern, right?
He went to Malvern, and I went to Villa, and we were seniors in high school.
Okay.
So it was like our senior year. It was like the fall of like the time of our lives. I was going to go to Mount St. Mary's. He was going to go to a school in North Carolina. And anyway, so we were just off for a great fall night at someone's nice house. And, and I went there, and it was like it was back in a windy country, beautiful home. And so we got there, and back in the day, or maybe it happens now, you get to the door and it's like, you're not on the list kind of thing. Those private schools, they're tough.
They're gonna be tough. Yeah.
I did not go to the right one at that party.
You get booted.
So we had to leave, and we were going to go get smokes, because everybody smoked like Marlboro Lights or something back then, And we were going to the convenience store, and I remember he thought that there was like a cop car coming. Like I think in his mind he thought that there was a police officer coming, and he started to drive a little faster. But Tim was like crazy, in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way, but also a little reckless.
Yeah.
And so he started to go a little fast, and I actually started to get really scared. And we were coming around a curve, and Broncos off-roading.
Yeah,
that's probably fun if you got a Bronco and there's the wilderness. And so instead of taking the curve, he kind of like went straight.
Okay.
And I don't know. So if you imagine like a sharp curve, and then he went straight. And I think what he was thinking was he was going to just meet up to the next road that we were going to turn on.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, this makes sense.
So he went off road to kind of merge onto the next road. And what we didn't know was there's like a huge ravine there, a big drop.
Yeah.
So right before the accident happened, I put my seatbelt on, and I remember, and I put my seatbelt on because I heard like a scream that said, put your seatbelt on. And so I put my seatbelt on, and as soon as I put my seatbelt on, I screamed out to Tim, put your seatbelt on. And he never put his seatbelt on. And we just went like flying. He was driving pretty fast. And the next thing we knew, it was like as if we hit a wall, like going, 60 miles per hour. It felt like we just like hit a wall.
Yeah.
And the wall was mud. So when we went off the road, we didn't know this deep ravine was there. So we went smack into the ravine. And the car was kind of buried really low.
Okay.
And no one could really see it because, it was dark out. And there was this one driver that, saw lights and then didn't see lights. And so that driver kind of drove away. And then I guess out of curiosity came back and saw that there was something there. I don't know how long we were there. It felt like an eternity that we were there.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a beautiful night, stars in the sky. It was just a perfect, beautiful fall night. I remember it. I mean, I remember sitting in the car, and I know I was in the car for a long time, and Tim was basically dying next to me. And I was bleeding so much because I smashed the windshield with my face, and I could feel the blood.
Yeah.
But I was aware enough in the car to take off my leather jacket and sit on it because I knew it would be ruined. You know, like it was getting covered with blood. Yeah. That's like that's the one thing I really remember was thinking one of the nicest things I had from Tim was going to get ruined here tonight. And there was just like mud and sticks and smell. And
it's so interesting that like in such a traumatic situation, like the normal things that you'll try to do. Like I wonder maybe it was like to tell yourself this is okay. It's not going to be that bad.
But it was such a strange response, you know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we sat in the car for a while, and he was moaning, and you know, I had this like fantasy when people would ask me about what happened.
Yeah.
I wanted them to think, you know, this like great love story happened in the car. You know, like we had like our last breaths, like we told each other, and for some reason I created that story. You know, like
why?
I think why, looking back on it, I think it's because I wanted people to think that his last breaths were like really great.
Triumphant or
yeah, like I don't know.
Totally.
And then but then in the moment in that car I was screaming because I was like lost, I was confused, I was really hurt, I was scared. And I kept screaming, you know, where are we? What happened? What happened? What happened? And he was saying, you know, help me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And I think my biggest regret in that car was I just wish I knew that was going to be the last time we heard his voice. You know?
Yeah.
It was.
You mentioned the last words that he said were, what was the last words that he said? Like, is Cathy okay?
Yeah. The
Right.
last thing he said was somebody came up to the door and saw us, and it was another fellow from Malvern Prep, and you know he came up to the window and just kind of looked in, and I remember hearing Tim say, "Is Cathy okay?" That was really basically one of the last words he said.
Yeah.
But you know what? I felt so sad. I never said, "Are you?" I never said, "Are you okay?" You know.
Well, maybe that was the essence of your relationship. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe that like he wanted to make sure that you were okay.
Yeah.
And he was okay.
Yeah.
Like in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
He always was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you were the one that ended up taking care of him.
Yeah.
You were the one that ended up in the prison, which I want to talk more about. But the one thing, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I know it's like very vivid and it's still alive today, just as much as it was before.
Yeah.
I have to note that like reading the first 10 pages, I've never been transported by a piece of writing in such a specific way. Like the first 10 pages, I wept through and it was almost like I was there with you. When you were writing, how did you open yourself up to be able to transport yourself back there? To like how did you get the words to come through like that?
I really believe the words were guided. I really believe they were. I think that there was a story that, you know, was told because I know from that accident, you know, when I was on the other side, you know, I knew that I was coming back to do healing work. I just knew it. I knew it. I was, you know, I can't tell you the exact words in that moment. Like I didn't know what I was going to do, but I came back believing and knowing that I was going to heal Tim, that I was going to be there to help him, you know.
Wow.
And so I never told anybody that ever. Never told his mom, never told anybody that I knew because they would think I was crazy. But I knew that that's what I was told, that I was going to be helping him.
Yeah.
And so when I would be in the room with him, it was such a spiritual experience then. I remember putting my hands on his, you know, his head or holding his hands. And so when he died, never recovering because he had suffered a traumatic brain injury.
Right.
And he never was able to do anything except blink his eyes for almost 20 years and moan and moan.
Yeah.
And
And
so
when he would moan, was that him responding or was it just by chance?
No, towards the end, he was kind of moaning more for signaling to like a nurse or something like that.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is that if we told him a joke, if his friends came over and told him a joke or something, he'd laugh. He'd laugh. Like he'd laugh just when he was supposed to. I mean, he was all there. He just lost the ability to control his body, but his mind and his spirit was still there, fully aware every day.
Yeah, there's this part of the book where you said, "Yet I couldn't stop looking at him. I felt the need to hold Tom's hand, to touch his head, to sing to him, to talk to him. I wouldn't allow myself to believe he wasn't going to be healed, that Tom wasn't going to make it. As long as I believed my prayers would be answers, I had hope. Anything less was never an option." So what I think is like so powerful about this and about your story is what happens when the circumstance of life, it doesn't get better.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when there is actually no hope? How do things play out? So can you just what happened to you?
I fell apart.
Yeah.
Kind of like, even when you see somebody that has cancer, and everyone thinks, oh, they should, they're more lucky that, when you have a parent that dies and maybe this sounds terrible, one's in a car accident, one's sudden, one's not. Mm-hmm. You always have hope for survival. You never think about death. And I always thought Tim was going to get better one day. One day he would just start talking. I believed it every day until it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And when it didn't happen, I felt like a complete failure. I thought maybe I didn't hear it right. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I didn't hear all that on the other side. I didn't come back to help him because I didn't,
Yeah.
But the truth is I did. The truth is I did. Because we all, he gave me everything I needed in those moments of silence. There was no talking. So I would spend hours with him, talk about learning how to be a healer. He taught me how to heal because I had to learn how to be with somebody and feel them, feel how they feel in that moment, feel if they're thirsty, feel if they're in pain, feel what they're thinking, And so looking back, he was my greatest teacher. Deborah King was a great teacher, but he was my greatest teacher on this planet in this lifetime. Yeah, my greatest teacher. And so, I really, it's Tim. In the book, you're going to read Tom just because, for publishing purposes. And, but, he suffered I really believe he suffered for all of us to become better people, to have the opportunity to raise our consciousness, to open our hearts.
Yeah. I think it's so crazy that the way that you bring up the way that Tim taught you, because he lost his ability to speak, to communicate. So out of that thing that was taken away, you had to find another way.
Yeah.
Right? And the best healing doesn't come from talk. It's the experience that somebody gives you.
Yeah.
I had a visceral experience from reading this book beyond words. And it's it makes so much sense that he was your biggest teacher and because you were forced to find another route. You were forced to build this incredible muscle of healing. I'm learning in this moment that you can be the best talker in the entire world, but that's only going to get you so far. That doesn't make you a great healer. It's what happens in here. After Tim had his accident, those years of you were caring for him, right? And you didn't go to college. You ended up enrolling. Actually, no, you ended up enrolling in community college, right?
No, I wanted to go to Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to night school at St. Joe's.
Oh, okay.
So I would visit him during the day. I did night school and day school because I remember leaving and going to feed him lunch and then coming back. When I say feed him lunch, it means help out. And we were giving him little, pureed food at some different times and or giving his mom a break. So I remember I would leave and I would go to the nursing home where he was temporarily and visit with him. So I went to school.
Yeah.
It was not the college experience. I was not doing keg stands. I was like cleaning drains and tracheas. Okay.
Which is wild at like 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
So when you were like going through this period of time, and it's so interesting because even in this book, like I grew up around you and I've always known you as this like just light of a human being. But there were like struggles underneath the surface. So like when you were in this time period of like intense darkness, did your sister, did your mom, did people know that you were struggling so much?
Well, so the thing is that what got me into the situation of falling apart was that I didn't think I was good enough because, you know, we have to be the good girl. We have to do good. Everything has to be good.
Yeah.
I went back and reflected on my whole relationship with him for all those years he was healing. You know, did I do a good enough job?
Yeah.
You know, did I help him enough? Where could I have helped him more? And so, you know, there was a tremendous sense of failing. And then when I fell apart the most, that when I was you know, really struggling, my family and friends and I was different. I didn't have the capacity to give so much. So instead of going out, I refrained and I stayed in and I hunkered down. And the idea of seeing somebody like in somewhere in my psyche was thinking that I would have to do something or be something for them. And I didn't have the energy to do it.
You didn't have the capacity.
I just didn't have it.
Right.
So
it's almost like the thing that you initially helped you survive, which is like, if I keep doing for other people and if I keep healing other people, I will survive. It stopped helping you survive and it started hurting you. And so as a result.
Well, it hurt me all along. I mean, it hurt me all along.
Yeah.
It was just like, you know, why is this so terrible? Why is this so terrible? Why is this so terrible? Because I never really stopped and was kind to myself. And I was young. I was 18 when the accident happened. And I wanted somebody to tell me to stop.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to tell me it was okay. And you know, my mom or my family or, you know, people will say they feel bad and that they were always there for me and they tried to get me to stop. And everybody was just who they were supposed to be.
Yep.
Everybody was just who they were supposed to be, just so I can be in this moment here today talking to you.
Right.
And sharing my experience of healing.
Yeah.
You know?
You had to have those years. Like I always talk about like I shouldn't have come out any sooner than I did because I had to have those 10 years of suffering to have the passion that I do have now to talk about it.
Yeah.
Couldn't have come out a day sooner. Shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
You know, so for you too, it's like you had to.
Yeah.
You had to do that because now you're just invigorated with this passion of healing.
Yeah.
If anyone had changed,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be who you are.
No. So
I believe that.
they were just who they were supposed to be in this lifetime for me. And I thank everybody for it.
Yeah.
You know, thank you for making it hard for me because it helped me realize, you know, what I need to do moving forward in my life.
Yeah.
You know?
So where does Scott come into the picture?
I totally believe that he is, well, first of all, Scott Gabrielsen, you know, so I really believe that the angels really sent him to me. And I think
thought about that. Oh, that gives me chills.
Yeah. I really, really do. I think that he came to support me in the work that I do because quite honestly, I don't know of very many husbands that would be supportive of somebody in the work that I do.
Yeah.
You know, in the community that I do. It's kind of, you know, it's woo-woo.
It's unique. How does he support you? Like
Oh, he's just everything. Well, you know, supporting me through my journey of healing. You know, I can remember, like, one time when I was at my lowest low, you know, and so all you people, like, you know, that don't think you can heal, like, you can. I'm telling you. I was on every prescription medication, everything. And I was talking to my psychiatrist every day because my PTSD was so bad. And I remember hearing him upstairs, you know, on the phone whispering, like, is she going to be okay? Like, is she okay? Like, now I'm starting to worry because everybody was telling him I wasn't okay, you know? And I'm like, I'm okay. I just need to be alone. But how to support him, he's always allowed me. It was the first relationship I was in that somebody just loved me for who I was and allowed me the opportunity to do whatever I wanted to do without questioning it. Well, and never questioned anything, never doubted me. Maybe that's like the coach in him. Maybe that's, he's so special. He just, you know, in writing the book and all my studying that I've done and he's just always supported me.
And the no judgment, like I think is so
judgment.
beautiful.
No,
Also,
no
mind you,
judgment.
Scott is like an absolute stud.
He brings joy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he puts a smile on everybody's face.
He
and
does.
mine too. And the one thing with Scott is, look, everyone has their own story. He has his own story of hurt and wounding. He just chose to react a different way in his life.
Right.
And so he sees the bright side in everything.
Right.
And so he's always pushing me, and always saying, don't worry, always my biggest fan, always supporting me.
Yeah.
Oh, and loving me unconditionally. I mean, when I had breast cancer and I was 32 years old and had a mastectomy, and I'm married to this like stud superstar, like the most handsome guy, and I'm losing my breast, I'm like, is he still going to love me?
Man.
And then, he did.
Yeah, there's a scene in this book where you like the bandages fall and you were like they like tattered to the ground, or they like fluttered to the ground, and the first thing he said was, "You are beautiful."
I know.
Like, are you kidding me?
And the way he was saying it was so kind and so true. And just what I needed to hear in that moment. As shallow as that may have been, I just needed I needed to hear that in that moment. That he still saw my beauty,
I think that's it's so transcendent, because it's like beauty is not about what you see, it's what you feel. And so like he made you feel held and loved in that moment.
I knew in that moment that I would be safe with him, that I would just be safe, that I would be safe. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he did my drains, he cleaned my bandages, he did everything. And he made me not afraid,
Really?
Yeah, by helping me. I mean, the first time I saw myself without a breast was the first time he saw me. Like, we saw it at the same time.
Wow.
So we experienced that together, and his response was just what I needed.
Yeah. And so can we talk a little bit about the near-death experiences? I think this is like...
They're super fun.
I never knew about this until you wrote this book in 2020.
I know. I know.
What was it like after you released the book and people in your life found out that you had 2 near-death experiences?
I think people, it's interesting because I can remember having them. I remember the one from high school.
Yeah.
My boyfriend had just suffered a traumatic brain injury. He died like 9 times, was resuscitated so many times that night. Wow. And here I am. I can remember like wanting to talk to people, the nurses. Like, was this like a dream? Like, did this happen? This was so crazy. Like, but I never wanted to tell anybody. But I was just thought they would think I was crazy. You know? And I can remember after the second one, which was just, it was a much longer, more vivid over time, I think, because I was kind of dying and going back and forth. But I remember I would whisper to people and I'd be like, I saw Jesus. Like, I wasn't, and I remember my friends, people being like, oh, yeah, uh-huh. Yeah. So a lot of people didn't believe me. And until I got into the spiritual community,
Yeah. And then you have support. But that can be like very isolating.
Yeah, the near-death stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because not having people who, even the people who are supportive and are like, okay, there's a difference between like support and versus
No, I was on an island when I had my breast cancer. I mean, there was nothing. There was nothing. The internet was just, just happening, but there was not really, and and there was not a lot of people. I felt like a little alone during that time. And then really after the near-death experiences,
Yeah.
But the near-death experiences, I feel like, God was like, come on, like, get your shit together,
Right.
I was literally dying to live.
So what does that mean?
What I mean is, my body was dying. I was so disconnected with myself physically and emotionally and spiritually. My whole essence and my purpose was for everybody else. So it was like, like, imagine here I am. I just put myself over here, like, hold on, I'll be right back to you,
Yeah.
And then I would just kind of go off. And take care of everybody else and disconnected myself. And in that, my life force was dying. I didn't know like what our emotions are, what fuel us. That's our energy. It's the gas, right? Our emotions.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any gas. I didn't know how I felt. I was really, really, really depleting my life force.
And when was this in the time period? Like what was the trajectory? Was it like after you were diagnosed with cancer? Like when was the lowest of the low?
The lowest of the low was in 2008, 2007, 2008.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I had my second near-death experience. And, you know, my second near-death experience, right? So you cross over and I'm like, what the fuck? Why can't I get in? I mean, I'm glad I'm here, but what is like rejecting?
Why
like,
am I still here?
Like, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Like,
right.
Here's heaven. No, not now. I'm like, okay. And then the second time I was like thinking like, I'm walking towards Jesus and I'm thinking, look at everything I did down there. Like that was pretty good. You know, how I helped everybody and how I did everything everybody wanted. And I sacrificed every part of my soul for everybody. Look, I was great work. And I remember him shaking his head. And I was like, what? Like everything I did, that still wasn't enough to get in? I got to go do more? You know? But the whole thing was, and he was like, yeah, he said, there's still work that you have to do. And the work really was me. The work was, I couldn't do his work. I couldn't, her work, Source's work. I couldn't do the work I was supposed to do.
Right.
Because I hadn't connected with myself.
So what was the connection? What was the message that you needed to, or the gap that you needed to fill from that you were ignoring, sort of like, you know what I mean? What was the block that you had prior to the second near-death experience that was leading you to be so depleted?
Okay, so the blocks were, at that time, were shame and guilt.
What kind of shame?
Shame for feeling like I didn't do enough or it wasn't good enough in life. I wasn't good enough to get into heaven. I wasn't as good of a girl as I thought I needed to be.
Yeah.
So the blocks of my emotions were blocking my physical health. And it really started, you asked when did it really all start? After my first accident. I had just, on my heart chakra, I had just such self-loathing for surviving and lack of forgiveness for not giving 1,000%, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe if I gave 1,000 more, things would have turned out different for Tim.
So did that create this drive in you to like help and heal other people?
I knew my purpose was to heal.
Yeah.
And so.
Got it. But it was a different kind of energy behind the healing.
I just didn't know. But the whole thing behind the healing was that, Spirit was trying to get me to heal myself because I can't heal anybody else until I'm healed. So my block was my light. My dark was in front of my light. And so what was my dark that was blocking my light? And my ability to really help the people that were around me was I had to let go of, my fear. I had to let go of myself, not being good enough, the shame of that.
See, what's crazy about this though is that, and I just like, this is so important to highlight. You were successful. You were being successful. You had Connect Through Cancer.
Yeah.
You were changing so many other women's lives and men who had breast cancer, right? So on the surface, you're Cathy Gabrielsen. But that wasn't happening.
No, never enough. It was never enough. Never enough. Now when I look back, but would it have been enough if I would have been able to the work that I did was I wasn't monetarily rewarded. It didn't feel successful. I didn't look like, oh, she's really doing great work in this world. It was just I had to honor my work and I wasn't. I was just too into doing more so that I would feel better because it was in the doing that I was feeling good.
Okay. Yeah.
And in the being is what I needed. So I was constantly doing to help other people, to serve, and never really was myself. you know?
Do you think there was a connection to the things that you're doing and the sickness that transpired in your body, like in your breast?
Oh my God, 1,000. I'm a firm believer that, you know, our mind, body, and spirit is connected.
Yeah.
And my mind, you know, was really, really, really affected, you know, my spirit was.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, you know, the block on my heart, I couldn't love myself, you know, and I didn't feel like I did enough. I couldn't forgive myself for not doing enough. I couldn't forgive myself for surviving the accident. And all that negative emotion was just sitting right here on my heart chakra. And I truly 1,000% believe that my breast cancer came from the emotional blocks.
Is there a downside to that? Because that, to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're not saying like, oh, I did this to myself. I brought the cancer on myself. Like, what are the positive and negatives to that?
No. I think that, you know, creating healthy emotions.
Yeah.
Finding the light instead of the dark. Finding self-love instead of not, you know, and finding self-worth instead of, you know, being guilty all the time. You know, I was always focusing on the wrong emotion. And because our emotions fuel us, it's our energy, I could fill myself with a really positive, light-filled energy of love, or I could fill it with the feelings of self-loathing, you know? And so that's a real low vibe. And that vibration, that energy, it affects us physically.
How did you, and I'm just so curious because what's the difference between the outward appearance? Because to me, you've always been the light. But inside there was darkness going on, right? So like, how do you decipher between the two? How do you choose the light and feel the light?
For me, I was just like, I didn't know my light. I didn't even know what I liked to eat. I didn't know what my favorite food was. I didn't know what even my favorite color was.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I didn't know myself. So when I started to heal, I was like, you know, okay, I gotta get to know myself. I don't even know how I feel. I don't even know how I feel.
Like helping.
I was
right?
I knew what somebody else needed before they even asked, because I was so into feeling how other people feel. If they were hungry, did they want more? Did they like what I gave them? You know, did they need more salt? You know, I was constantly like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do?
Oh, but I have this image of me babysitting your kids when I was younger, and you being like, here, I ordered chicken fingers. Here, eat some chicken fingers. And I remember being like, how the hell did she know that I love chicken fingers and that I'm really fucking hungry right now? Like, you would take care of me.
I remember making you mac and cheese. I remember you sitting at the counter, like after school or something like that.
I was just like, this was the best gig ever. I get paid to watch her kids, but she's taking care of me.
I love to feed. I love to make people eat. Yeah.
It's so funny. So this, like, the idea of, you know, you before the near-death experience and then you after the near-death experience it's really like blowing my mind, especially the fact that you were just like, you had the success and it was like a rainstorm inside. What was the difference for you? Like, what was the thing that changed for you after that second near-death experience?
The biggest thing was, holy shit, like, I got to figure out how I'm going to get in, you know? Like, like, well, I'm clearly doing something wrong.
Oh my God. Okay,
like,
yes, that makes sense.
I'm clearly living my life wrong.
Right.
Because here, look, you know, I sacrificed my college experience. I spent days in and out in hospitals, rehab centers, nursing homes, my boyfriend's house. I sacrificed so much of my, like, okay, that's great. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to sacrifice everything, right? Right?
Give up. Working.
It's not working. Okay, so here, then, you know, I'll do this. I'll create a nonprofit that helps other people that have cancer and do everything I wanted and do. I'm like, this is so great. I'm helping all these people. I'm so tired. I'm exhausted, you know? My kids need me. My son needed me, you know? Then I started to homeschool my son. I'm like, it was endless, nonstop. You know, and so when I got to the other side and I saw the whole experience, the angels, I saw saints, I saw Mary, I just heard the music. It was the most beautiful thing. And I was like, I literally thought I had like, like you can imagine like high fiving people like, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm
this
in.
makes sense.
This time I'm definitely in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay. And then so what happened was I was like, holy fuck, I got to figure out how to get in heaven. And clearly giving everything and doing everything for everybody is not going to get me there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to figure out, okay, there's work. You know, I was told I have work to do. And I had work to do.
Yeah.
And what it was I had work to do on myself.
Yeah.
The work wasn't about anybody else. The work was for me. So
there was that reminds me of this part of the book where you said, at last it was time. You said, I'm not here to suffer, I realized. I'm not here to be a victim. I'm not here to watch my dreams wither, my body wilt under cancer, to wallow forever in hopelessness and despair. I'm here to rise up and become the person the light created me to be. I'm here to overcome the shame, the self-blame. I'm here to love on and encourage others, to be a guide, a mentor, a light, a flame of burning hope. And I'm here because there's too much that remains undone in my life. At last it was time. From that realization, like, how does, I know like as you're writing, right, like things just kind of come through, but was there a moment for you when you realized it? Was it after you had this near-death experience? Does it span over weeks, months? What happens after that second near-death?
It was, you know, a span. You know, I wasn't just all of a sudden like a download of like clarity.
Yeah.
You know, there was work involved. You know, there was work involved. And I wanted to do the work. I wanted to do what I knew I needed to do. I wanted to. And I was like, okay, that's it. And the response, you know, about, you know, when you raise your consciousness and you change, like me making that decision, like this is it. Okay. My whole energy changed. My whole spirit lifted. Because I made a decision that I was going to take care of myself. Wow. And so my consciousness was rising. I was clearing.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yeah. I can feel even you just talking about it. It's
I was
the
like,
coolest
wait,
thing ever.
okay, this is like, okay, I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to do this. And I am, you know, it was like everybody has something worse. Like, you know, I remember one time after my breast cancer, I had my radiation. I had no skin on my breast. I just got diagnosed with Lyme disease. I was so sick. And I went downstairs to get a cup of hot tea and I dropped the hot water on my foot and then all the skin on my foot fell off when I took my sock off. And I went upstairs and I cried. And everybody was like, oh my God, she's crying. Oh my God, she's crying. Is she okay? She needs medication. Something's wrong. And I was like, oh my God. You know?
You were okay. You weren't affected by them anymore because you were centered.
No, but it was, so what was happening in that moment when I was like when I made the decision to be aware of myself. That the work that I needed to do was on myself first. Like the mask when you get in the airplane, it has to go on yourself before it goes on somebody else. I say that every time I get on the plane. It's the same thing. I had to take care of myself. And it was interesting. It was the first time I felt different to people. So I wasn't the spirit that they were used to because my spirit was overdoing, over giving, over, you know,
and did you feel that? Did you feel that? Did you get that information from them saying this to you, or did you get it because you felt it?
I got it because I felt it.
Yeah,
I got it because I felt it, and it was kind of obvious because people were like falling off the face of the earth. Like I was like, who is she? You know, who is she? Wow, you know, who is she? And I was different.
How did you feel?
I felt like I broke a shell, like I was coming out, you know, and I was like, okay. And it was in order for me to find out about myself and my purpose in this life and why I'm actually here and what the work I'm supposed to do for myself and my soul purpose, I had to get to know myself. And I had to get and in order to get to know myself, I had to get to know how I feel about myself. And if I want to know how I feel about myself, I have to know how I feel. I have to know how I feel in every moment. Like I have to know what joy feels like and who's responsible and who's around me and what am I doing to feel joyful. I had to know, you know, what when I'm afraid or I'm having anxiety, like, okay, in this moment, I'm anxious. Okay, so what's going on? Where's this coming from?
Yeah.
How do I feel? Who am I with? Who am I around? And I started to realize, you know, who made me feel good,
Yeah.
who didn't make me feel good. And it was kind of like I was cleaning up myself and I was my surroundings, both internally and also who I was choosing to surround myself with.
Wow. That's so powerful because it's like there's the mission. You always had the mission of helping others and being a healer, right?
Yeah.
But then the second part of this is like there's this second layer, which is doing the healing for yourself, which in turns makes you a better healer for other people.
Yeah, and teaches me how to heal in the process.
Right.
Because I'm
right.
just teaching people my experience. I'm just, look, you've got a story that is healing millions of people, millions and millions, your story, right?
Yeah.
Stories heal.
Yeah.
So you had your story and this is just mine. And so it's my story of healing and you have your story of healing and we share our stories and they help.
Right. The before the second NDE and the after second NDE Cathy is night and day. It's like it's so different.
So different. You know, and I remember one of my meditations, like a contemplative prayer is so powerful. And, you know, you open yourself up to visions and stuff. And I remember seeing Jesus, you know, and I always say to everybody when I talk about near-death experiences that one of the things that I learned in my experience is that when you do cross over, it's like you actually see your God. You know, so however you envision yours, that's going to be what you're going to see, whether it's Buddha,
God, Allah,
whether it's Allah, you know, whether it's Mary, whoever your focus is who you see. So I say Jesus and I'm doing the work and I saw him and during a meditation and he showed me 2 books and I remember saying, you know, why 2? Why do I have 2 books? And he said, because this is the first part of your life and this is the second. And we're in the second book, you know.
And so this was part 2.
This is my part 2. This is like, okay, let's get going. You know, let's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was there a period of like coming out as someone who had an NDE? Like how did you because you said you didn't speak about the fact that you had these otherworldly experiences. And had you had, first of all, 2-part question. I'm just exploding with questions here. Had you ever had an otherworldly experience prior to the accident? And then what was your journey towards being open about talking about it?
I was never open about talking about it, ever.
Really?
Because it's like, humble, you know, like I'm like I can't tell anybody that I'm talking to Jesus, you know. I couldn't tell people that I was like I think that I'm going to help people in this lifetime, you know. But I remember it started when I was young.
Really?
Yeah, when I was a little girl, like 1st grade was probably my first real feeling, really spiritually connected, feeling like I had a picture above my bed of Jesus, you know, reading to little children. And I just like had in my imagination, I just imagined that I was just right there in front of him and he was reading to me too. But I remember when I was in 1st grade and Sister Geraldine at St. Simon and Jude, you know, she would always just tell us to, you know, pray for our vocation or what we're going to do. And I remember praying that day and I felt something. And I went up to Sister Geraldine and I said, Sister, how do you know when God's calling you? And she said, you'll feel it in your heart. And I knew I did. I knew in that moment, never told anybody that ever, but I just knew. And I remember saying to God or Spirit or Source, whoever can I have a couple kids? Can I have some kids along the way? I just don't want to be in the convent.
I love this. I love this. One tweak, one edit.
One. Look, I know. Can I be the servant that has kids?
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. So I kind of always knew. Yeah.
And then what was this journey like when you started after you had your first near-death experience? Like, did you talk about it?
Never talked about it. Never told anybody anything. I really buried that one. I
Really?
really buried it. I just because I was afraid people would think I'm crazy. I was crazy, you
Yeah.
know. And I do remember always being really free about talking about spirits. I could always feel my grandmother come. I could feel her and sense her, you know. And I never, for some reason, I never had a problem sharing that, but I never told anybody about the near-death experiences, ever.
So what was the point where you felt like you were strong enough, comfortable enough to share that vulnerability?
I mean, I only shared it with really close people until I wrote the book. So
Yeah.
I never told, like, you know, even Tim's family, you know, I never told them. I never
Yeah.
really even told my friends, you know. I did tell a couple close people, like I said, that I had, you know, I did. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Have another pill, Kath. Take another one of those poppers.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yeah. And now you feel like it's part of your, like after the second NDE, do you feel like that was part of the message, which is like you need to share?
Yeah. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, my story, you know, wasn't complete without having some more experience over there, because I truly believe that it's, you know, we are focusing so much on the physical body here in this lifetime, you know, like fasting, food, all this kind of stuff. But our spirit is what leaves. Our spirit is what leaves and lives on. I see the spirit. I sense it. I experienced heaven on the other side. I see the degrees of power that you can have as a spirit. And so I'm so want to share with people the importance of focusing on your spirit. And when I say your spirit, you know, that really is, you know, your everything outside your physical body. And that if you focus on your emotions, you're focusing on your spirit. You know, you're focusing on how you feel. You're focusing on your spirit.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of piques my interest, because I think like there's a lot of the self-help world which focuses on, you know, you can control your emotions. Your emotions are just fleeting things. Like, where do you land on that? Because you said, you know, your emotions is your spirit, right?
Yeah. So much of our how we live, how I lived, you know, how you live, how everyone that's watching or listening lives, is that we come in these pure little creatures, these pure little creatures, right? And then, you know, then life and society kind of help mold us. And how that happens is our responses to our experiences, and how we felt. Okay. And so I had experiences, you had experiences, some experiences that made me feel good and some that didn't. But I'd recreate how to feel good. So I felt really good when I did stuff. You know, I did stuff for my mom, or I did stuff for my teachers, or I was a good girl and I didn't talk. You know, I figured out how to feel good. So because when I did good things, I felt really good. So check. Okay, so how do I move in life? I got to do good things. You know, right. And so we have those stories, and then our emotions and how we feel, and the time we were shamed, or maybe physically abused, or sexually abused, or emotionally abused. I mean, those are wounds. And then what happens is we're trained not to feel, to control the emotion, and controlling it just means that, you know, it's controlling it for most people is just like setting it aside, and controlling it means sitting on it and not letting it affect you. Well, let it affect you, because that's process, you know. And so a lot of us have these old experiences that are kind of stored in our body, those old wounds. Yeah. And those are the emotions that have to get released. Emotions related to the experience. So if you're sexually abused, it's the emotion of feeling not pure or dirty, or, you know, it's the emotion of the experience that you have. That's not you. Right. You know, because that experience is not you.
Right. I think Oprah had a quote one time where she was like, she was interviewing this woman who was sexually abused, and she was like, it's not about the sex, it's about the shame. Yeah. Right. It's about the experience, the emotion. Yeah. I think also this kind of brings up something that you mentioned when we were at dinner a few weeks ago in Florida, where you were talking about how people tend to, like, a lot of modern day, you know, energy stuff and therapy and stuff like that involves like going into your past and digging up your past. But you kind of said something sort of alternative, which was like, you don't necessarily need to go in your past. Do I have that right? Like because the problem will resurface itself and it will re-show itself, or the message will come back.
Yeah.
Did I have that right?
Yeah. Your past is like right here in front of you. You know, it's literally right here in front of you.
Oh,
If you
that
have
makes
a
sense.
problem that is not getting resolved, your past is right there in front of you. It's just like, hi, get rid of this, you know, let go of this.
What is it? Is it a message? Is it a lesson that you have to learn?
A lesson. It's a lesson.
Uh-huh.
One of the things I've learned is in my time in the light and in real serious like visions and contemplations and messages is that we're all here to learn something. Like we're all here to like get over something, to have a
Dharma.
purpose. Yeah, like we, you know, well, we all have a purpose, right? And I really believe that, you know, if we have the same problem that's repeating itself in our life, then it's like, okay, well, we clearly, that's holding you back. There's something in that situation that's not helping you move forward in
So
life.
is that where people get their purpose? I'm kind of having a light bulb moment.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Because
I know.
everyone's like, or actually, like, and bringing this up right on myself for a second, but like, I have journal entries as a kid just being like, whatever I do, I want to be great. Capital G. I just want to be great at it. I want to be great. I want to be one of the greats. And my whole thing was finding my purpose. Find your purpose, find your purpose. Because I just grew up with someone, you know, my mom who found her purpose and her love, and I just saw how much joy it brought, and you know, the power of that. And so I just said, I don't care what I do. I just want to love what I do. But it haunted me, the idea of like, well, what is my purpose? Well, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? And I never thought to lean into the thing that you struggle with, right? Like that's what you're saying. Like the message that is, or the block that is constantly coming back and back, wearing, you know, a different pair of pants. Maybe it's this person. Maybe it's this. That's your purpose.
Yeah. Whatever
Whatever you're supposed to learn in that.
Yeah. Because that's like part of your story. I mean, think about my stuff all those years. You know, when I learned my lesson, why I'm here, I'm able to help other people with that. Talking about spirituality, talking about, you know, how important your spirit body is, how important your emotional body is, you know, your mental body, how important it is. You know, that's really my purpose, because I want to help people get into the light, go to the light when it's their time. I want them to understand that everyone has access to it. And it was my choice to come back. You know, Jesus was saying there's more work for you to do, but I still had a choice to stay.
Yeah.
You know, and I chose to come back. I chose to come back.
Yeah.
And the work that I do here, right? The work that all this amazing healing blocks that you're doing, that is what will happen is as a result of you really sharing your purpose, living your authentic self, living your soul purpose. It elevates your soul. So when this physical body is no more, your spirit body is so alive and helpful, even on the other sside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So your lesson is really, really a part of your purpose. You know, our wounds. And you had, and when we talk about going back, no, you don't. And I don't think it's, if we don't remember something and we don't know something, we can just thank our higher self, thank spirit. We're not supposed to. So there's no sense in going to digging to figure out how the wound got created.
Right.
You know, look at your behavior. Like, what are you doing? You know, what's in your behavior? You know,
and trust that it will come back wearing a different kind of type of pants.
It's
Oprah
going to come
always
back.
says
It's
that,
just going to circle right around. It's going to come back and hit you in the face in another totally different way. Mine was, I was so physically sick. My body was really physically shutting down, you know, and my life force was really, my energy was really depleting, you know, but I wasn't focusing on any part of me.
So it's almost like the message, the mission of your life to be a healer was, well, it's from a kid you knew, but it was really given to you. The assignment was given to you again in the car crash. And since then, you've just been finding your way home to that. Right? Even like.
And it's still not over. I'm still going to have more lessons to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still here for something, you know, for something, you know, and I can remember one of the first times that you came into my office, and, you know, I remember saying, I don't know if you remember, there's another part of your story, there's another part of your story. Like, and the other thing too is that it's you doing that as a child, writing down how great you are, like you knew it in your heart and your soul, like you knew it.
Yeah.
You knew it. And that ability for you to actually kind of see it, then you create it.
Yes. Yes. There's this Alan Watts video that I listen to every day, and he talks about reality is not fixed, it bends. Like it moves with the energy that you put out in the world, right?
Yeah.
And it's so classic, like, law of attraction and all of that stuff. But it blew my mind because he talks about the fact that I've always had this question of like, what is the difference between toxic positivity and wallowing in your despair? And he said a quote where he said like, believing that everything works out for you, which is like a mindset and a way of living that I've adopted recently in my life. Believing that everything works out for you is not about ignoring difficulties or pretending that blocks don't exist. It's about being in them, inside the block, and seeing a way through, like a tiny step forward, right? Seeing the possibility of outcomes when you're sitting in the middle of a cement block. And that's the shift that I needed to know. Like there is a way. You don't have to ignore it, but you can also be positive inside of it.
Absolutely. I love that. It's the whole idea that everything is not coming, to us, it's for us.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what's this for? Okay, let me just sit with this for a minute.
Yeah.
That's my line. Like I'm always saying, okay, I just got to sit with this.
I just got to sit with this. I've heard
this.
So with that being said, we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
For anyone who wants to get in touch with you, before we like kind of have, closing comments and stuff like that, how can people find you? What are you up to these days?
I am on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff.
Gotcha.
At Cathy Gabrielsen. And, but I love to help mentor people. It's actually one of my favorite things.
Really?
Yeah. So mentor them in life, but also on their spiritual journey, So I do all my sessions are by Zoom, and people can meet with me, and when we find a great time to work, and the sessions are really, really powerful. But I love to help people find their purpose, and I love to teach, and I love to share. And I've got courses, chakra healing. My big course that's being launched is the Prana Detox, and that's really like detoxing your whole mind, body, and spirit.
What does it entail?
Detoxing your whole mind, body, and spirit.
Or is it activity based?
It's basically it's different levels. It's really just the idea that I try to help people is that you are your own healer. Like you are your own healer. You do the work. Like you're a conduit. You're just a source of light. You're just a source of connection to help people. I'm just a conduit. I'm just a source to help people, and I really love to share that work and show them like, incorporate, this type of movement, know your body constitution. I practice Ayurveda. So I really help people appreciate who they are, what their body needs and wants from a physical aspect, and what it needs emotionally, and their uniqueness is how I help them. Wow. Really help clear the toxicity of the emotions, the negative emotions, and help them clear their body. And it's really just the idea of empowering somebody to really take the charge and connect what they think and how they feel with what they do, and how that can be so healing.
Wow. It's like that second chapter, right, that you went in.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're trying to get people to experience, because you've had the experience of doing the thing, like doing the activities of helping people. Yeah. And you've also experienced where it comes intrinsically from a place of health. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm an Ayurveda coach, and I'm a spiritual coach, a spiritual teacher, kind of help people. A lot of people come to me that are really interested in spirituality, or really interested in what that means, or, so.
Do you have any plans to like write another book or anything in like film, or, I'm
going to let spirit guide me. There's more work. I think that one of the things that I know that is happening with me is that taking all those old teachings and kind of stating them in a way that more people can kind of understand.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Just the old stuff, which was always, the good stuff.
Always the good stuff.
Yeah.
The Louis Hay.
I know.
Like it's just Alan Watts.
Yeah.
Like go back to the OG.
Yeah.
Culture has been great in introducing this new wave, but I think in that process of the translation, things get lost and they get mixed up.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things I also wanted to share that has become really, 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 people are like, oh, there's so much. What can I do? Like, what can I do? Right? Like, how can I start? But the first thing is to really help mind your mind and just make a choice of how you're going to respond to things that happen to you every single day with every single person, and just, gratitude opens the heart. As soon as you say thank you, your heart opens up. Yeah. So when you're upset with somebody or somebody's upset you or a situation's upsetting you, just thank it. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being so annoying. Thank you for making me angry, because thank you for making me sad. Thank you for hurting my feelings. Because when you respond, that response means that there's something that's a little bit unresolved in you. And so thank you for making me feel that way. There's a little bit of anger that needs to be resolved in me, and so, it's really important if we look at what happens in our life on a day-to-day basis. That's the single-handedly one of the most important things that you can do. And if you do nothing else, just try to honor the experiences as being grateful for life, even when it's not giving you, what you really want.
Because it's part of your larger picture.
Because it's giving you exactly what you need.
That is so okay. We're gonna end it there because that was so freaking powerful. And also, I gotta add, like, that connects to your entire story about having the shit that happens in your life. It's the same thing over and over again. Yeah. So if it's bothering you and it's just wearing a different type of pants, right? Yeah. Like, thank you, because now I can dig in and get into and heal it.
And let it go. And then just move on.
There was one line that struck me from this book, and then I promise we'll end it because I could literally talk your ear off for an entire day.
I know. We would have so much fun together, Carrie.
So much fun. But you just said something along the lines of, like, I decided I wanted to heal.
Yeah.
And that, for me, it blew my mind. It's like, it's so not about the circumstance. It's not about what happens to you in life. It's like, what is the lesson in this? And do I want to heal?
Yeah. You said it earlier, the choice to wallow and be the victim or not.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And in, like, the hardest times, I remember when the most painful times, I would think about everybody that suffered more than I did. Mm-hmm. Like, that was like, she burned at the stake. I mean, that's bad. Like, that's way worse than me. Okay, I can survive this.
Yes.
Or, like, you just always were thinking about something that's, that's everything. You can survive everything. The only thing you're not going to survive is death if you decide to stay over.
If you decide, or maybe you got more work.
Yeah, I don't want any more work.
I'm good. I'm good with where I'm at.
I'm good.
We're working on it. We're having a good time.
Yeah, I don't need another shitstorm. I'm good. Okay?
All right, you heard it here first, y'all. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie.
I cannot wait to, release this episode and have everybody listen to it. And for everyone here, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
on the show. This is amazing, and we're definitely going to have you back because we have a part 2 of this book that we haven't even gotten into.
I know. Thanks
amazing.
so much.
Of course. All right. Cheers. Bye, guys.